Time for Democrats to man up. I'm Michael Smerconish. Today in Washington, D.C., something remarkable happened in 2024 that Democrats still haven't figured out how to fix. Young men, once a key part of their coalition, they bailed. And they didn't just stay home, they went to Donald Trump. In fact, CNN exit polling shows more than half the male vote nationwide, 55%, went to Trump, while Harris got just 42%. And among men under 30, they went from supporting Democrats in 2020 by 15 points to backing the GOP in 2024 by 13, an enormous swing. No wonder the party is taking a long, hard look inward, which leads to the Speaking with American Men Project, or SAM. Got a $20 billion budget and an urgent mission: win back a generation of men who feel ignored, ridiculed, and left behind in the classroom. According to the Pew Research Center, women in their late 20s are now far more likely than men to hold a college degree, 47% versus 37%. Left behind in the dating pool. Pew data show roughly 6 in 10 men under 30 are single, about double of young women. Men are getting left out of the labor force as well. The Federal Reserve reports that the share of prime-age men not participating in the labor force has roughly doubled since the 1970s, reaching 11% in 2022. Mental health, another flashpoint. CDC figures reveal men comprise nearly 80% of U.S. suicide deaths. The SAM Project's findings reflecting a lot of these numbers. After conducting 60 hours of focus groups, media analysis, and polling, here's what they've discovered. Young men feel disconnected from civic life. They distrust politics, education, even the job market. They feel shame about their mental health, conflicted about their masculinity, and struggling with economic anxiety, even those who are making six figures. And yet, check this out, in the Democratic Party's own Who We Serve platform, which is posted online, they mention a whole list of constituency groups: African Americans, Americans with disabilities, Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders, Democrats abroad, ethnic Americans, Latinos, faith community, LGBTQ+ community, Native Americans, rural Americans, seniors and retirees, small business community, union members and families, veterans and military families, women, young people and students, but not men. That's a lot of votes to disregard. New polling shows it's not that men are shifting hard to the right politically. They're tuning out. 37% of young men now view both major parties negatively, reflecting disillusionment with institutions over partisan zeal. So when Bill Maher joked about the Democratic Party's retreat to figure out the crisis, he struck a nerve.
So they had a meeting up at the Ritz-Carlton at Half Moon Bay, south of San Francisco. I'm not making this up, where they served mini lobster rolls and had heirloom tomato carpaccio and seared sea bass in their conclave to decide how to win back the American man. Now,
and when Joy Behar said this on The View, the audience applauded, but many men heard something else.
Maybe these guys should spend their money on teaching men to not be such sexists. Maybe that's
it. But the stats don't bear that out now that we've seen the election result.
Sam's research found that comments like that, widely shared online, feed a perception that Democrats see men as the problem rather than as part of the solution. And when young men do tune in and look for voices that reflect them, guess who's talking to them? Check out this chart from Media Matters. It compares the total following of left-leaning and right-leaning online programs. Right-wing male influencers, they dominate. Ben Shapiro, 25 million. Jordan Peterson, 23 million. Joe Rogan, 40 million. The left has no comparable reach. Let's also note the fact that this media is filling a space at a time when, socially, men's circles are shrinking. A 2021 survey found that 15% of men, 15%, have no close friends. That's up from 3% in 1990. And young men are spending their time with their online friends on YouTube, podcasts, Twitch, Discord, with a Rogan or a Shapiro in spaces where Democrats hardly show up. According to reporting from Politico, even progressives who launched the SAM Project were mocked by fellow Democrats for taking this demographic seriously. But maybe they should pay attention. Because as William Galston wrote in the Wall Street Journal, the shift is real. Since 2012, support for Democratic presidential candidates among Black, Latino, Asian men dropped 16%. Galston argues that race isn't the dividing line anymore. Education level and economic status are, and that Trump has built a diverse, working-class coalition that may outlive him. Just listen to what our own Harry Enton says about this coalition.
Now in our latest CNN poll among registered voters, which is the party of the middle class? It is tied. This, I think, speaks to Democratic ills more than anything else. They have traditionally been the party of the middle class. No more. Donald Trump and the Republican Party have taken that mantle away, and now a key advantage for Democrats historically has gone adios amigos, and now there is no party that is the party of the middle class. Republicans have completely closed the gap.
So what now? Maybe Sam is a start, a serious attempt to listen, not lecture, and to engage young men in the spaces where they already live. Joining me now is one of the people behind this effort. Elise Hogue is co-founder of the Speaking with American Men Project. Elise, thank you for being here. Let's do the easy part first. We can agree that men ought to be on that list of the constituencies that Democrats are trying to serve, right?
I would think so. If we're going to be a big tent party, then we absolutely need to include half of the population.
Why do you think that there's been this failure until now to say we need to do better with men? We need to do better with young men in particular.
Look, Democrats and men didn't drift apart accidentally. The right put in a tremendous amount of resources and effort to actually take some very real problems that young men are having and turn them into grievance politics. But Michael, I got to tell you, in 60 hours of listening, and by the way, I didn't get an invite to Half Moon Bay, but those lobster rolls look good. In 60 hours of listening, what we found is that men actually care about the same things that progressives care about. Young men want affordable housing. They want better access to health care, but they're not being invited into the conversation, and they're not seeing themselves reflected in the progressive coalition that Democrats purport to work for.
I think the data bears out what you just said. Tonight in Newark, New Jersey, I'm going to roll some tape here. Here's a scene that I expect to unfold. It's President Trump walking into a UFC event with Dana White at his side. By the way, don't expect that Elon Musk will be at his side tonight. And he will be received with raucous applause. There's no Democratic response, a gathering like this of a group of men coming together. Elise, the portrayal among some is, well, that's all toxic masculinity. I don't buy into that criticism. And I think of a guy like Scott Galloway who says it's got to be about aspirational masculinity. I guess the question is, where's the Democratic response to a gathering like that which will take place tonight?
Yeah, it's been absent for a long time. Look, SAM was established to bridge a gap that the co-founders have been sort of screaming into the void about for a long time. John Della Volpa and I wrote extensively in 2024 that Democrats had a young man problem. The party seemed to take them for granted, to not actually have the analysis that the right wing had invested millions, hundreds of millions of dollars actually in moving these young men right. We're not in the spaces that they're in. And in fact, we tend to deride their interests, right? Like we assume because they watch sports that they're violent. Joy Behar's response is all too common. When we get reaction to the fact that we're saying this is a cohort worth investing in, $20 million is actually a pretty modest amount given how much we spend on constituency organizing over a period of 2 years. The response that we get is all too similar to Joy's. These young men, if they're not already with us, then they're dangerous. Nothing could be further from the truth. When we sit and listen, they are so grateful that someone wants to hear about their very real problems finding a job, problems for providing for their family. And they're, quite honestly, most of them are great with some of the things that we care about. We had one young man say, I love that my wife makes more money than me. I just want to contribute too. That, to me, does not deserve mocking. That actually deserves care and concern and a hand into the coalition that should fight for progressive values that lifts everyone up economically and socially.
Can I say that beyond those very serious issues, which I used as part of the introduction and you've just made reference to, say what you will about President Trump, but he's got a knack for this curb your enthusiasm, Seinfeldian touch of reaching not just men, but a common chord. You know, when he talks about shower head pressure, when he talks about stop spending on the penny, when he says Pete Rose ought to be in the Hall of Fame, when he says the NFL kickoff rule is weird. And a lot of these things, I think, get lost on the legacy media. And I pay attention and I'm attentive to them because I think they really resonate with the very people you're now trying to reach.
It's about establishing trust. It's about establishing common interest, right? And when we're in Discord or when we're in the subreddits, what we're hearing is young men, like most people, actually are sharing their interests. They want to talk about gaming. They want to talk about their investments in crypto, but they also want to talk about, how to make the country a better place. And, we kind of got a lot of blowback for saying that we need to actually understand the way that they're speaking to each other. But I got to say, Michael, when I wrote in August of 2024 that we were sitting on a 4-alarm fire because Trump went on kick with Aiden Ross, everyone looked at me like I was speaking a foreign language.
Elise, thanks for your insight. I really appreciate it. It's going to be interesting to watch the approach that comes from this.
Thank you for having me on, Michael, and thanks for taking this problem so seriously.
I do, and I have for quite some time. I don't just mean for Democrats. I'm not one, but I'm worried about our young men.